What a quaint little boot up animation. The individual letters descending into place as they cycle through what is a very garish looking rainbow on any modern display, accompanied by a similarly colorful chord strum fading out into an audible hiss, topped with a callback to Nintendo's previous handhelds that is a bit ear-grating given the high pitch and bit crushing. A perfect encapsulation of the minigames following up this very screen, for better and worse. As much as those odd characteristics prevailed, over time, developers would grow to utilize the system's capabilities more effectively, as with any other gaming hardware. Likewise, the marketing shifted and adapted, with system revisions that radically altered the play experience, such as making the screen actually visible. By the end of its life, the GBA had become home to quite a few pretty simple pick-up-and-play games, your WarioWares, your Mario vs. Donkey Kongs, and whatnot. The kind of stuff that would later go on to absolutely dominate the DS's library, among which being... Rhythm Tengoku is very Game Boy Micro-esque in its nature, a system itself with clear design influence from the original DS, think the silver color. It's compact at the expense of comfortability, as it maximizes playing on a whim and a sleeker aesthetic. It's difficult to put into words, but it simply feels at home on the Micro more than any other context. Which is why I chose to play it on my Analogue Pocket. Seriously, have you seen how expensive micros are secondhand? I already have enough expensive Game Boys as is. I wanted to come up with some clever introduction for this section, but I think it'd make more sense to be upfront and concise about it. This game's style is really awesome. For the most part, Rhythm Tengoku sticks to one flat color, thick outlined art style, easy to read from a distance yet still nuanced enough to have a distinctive charm, which is strengthened by the music, like any good rhythm game. Genuinely, this game has some of the nicest sounding and downright jammin' music on the whole system, to the point of full-on lyrical music videos in GBA form. Maybe that's where the devout title comes from. There are so many strange little scenarios in this game. One of the minigames has you tap dancing with monkeys, and another has you following the instructions of a Japanese commander. If you perform well enough at that one, it's shown that you were training for an alien rescue mission. There's also that baseball one where you play as Andrew Hussey's persona, the camera zooming in and out as you watch them become even more strange. It's not WarioWare levels of perverse, mind you, but this game still goes to some odd, usually extraterrestrial places sometimes. A personal highlight for me was the minigame Sneaky Spirits. It immediately hits you with the ambience of a late-night downpour, but this isn't exactly calming. Really, the scenario is quite silly. You have to retaliate against ghosts appearing from a haunted house using a bow. A disembodied bow, of course. If you land a perfect hit, you get this sick slow-mo shot of the ghost getting pelted back into its evil resident, before the rhythm kicks back in. On a few cycles, the ghost will descend under the surrounding barricade, fading out the music, leaving you at the mercy of your instincts, with nothing to go off other than the sound of rain. Fucking perfect microcosm of storytelling right there, and it's pretty fun to boot. And all of these wacky minigames are played with extremely simple controls, some using just the D-pad, others 2 buttons, and there's even some that only use a Balan Wonderworld. I'm not even sure if there's any that use the shoulder buttons besides some optional one-off modes. And that simplicity is what makes it so easy to get into this game's groove. Strangely enough, despite that simplicity, I've never been able to get into the Rhythm Heaven series. I tried the first few minigames and stopped soon afterwards. I even distinctly recall playing this very entry many years ago on an emulator. Now I think I know why. This game isn't just hard, it can be obtuse and borderline cruel sometimes. How minigames telegraph themselves feels really inconsistent. Sometimes it's pretty clear, other times I'm getting tripped up for seemingly no fault of my own. And the rhythm itself can feel really unnatural to someone like myself, who's actually somewhat familiar with music stuff, like it's oversimplified or something. It's very trial and error, and that's probably the intent to some degree. You need to practice in order to excel and all that. But it feels offbeat in this case, not to mention how nebulous the ranking system is to begin with. I must have spent half an hour trying over and over at the Bon Odori, failing time and time again until I somehow got a superb rank, even though I didn't feel like I performed significantly better. Again, Rhythm Tengoku doesn't show how well you performed overall until the very end, the only other indicator of performance being how many prolonged stairs cross your way. You really need to feel it out more than other rhythm games out there. Hell, one of the minigames isn't even a rhythm game. You have to match the number of button presses or else you fail immediately. It's a little endearing, but among everything else, it's yet another way this game beats you down to the ground. I had to use save states. If I were Monkey, I would not be happy about this. I'd be livid. Though, I feel like that's kind of a given for rhythm games back then. Well, maybe not by 2006, but just older rhythm games with strong character theming. Like, okay, have you ever tried playing one of the Parappa games?
Alright, we're here, just sitting in the car. I want you to show me if you can get far. Turn to the right, now turn to the right. Whoa, ho, 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 stop the car. Yes. What? Yes. What? Yes. What? What? I forgot to close the door.
Do I know why we stopped the car?
You gotta do it again.
Quite frankly, they barely function. But if they did, then you'd be able to beat them in half an hour. They wouldn't feel as much a cool, monumental challenge if the telegraphing was more clear and readable. I don't think it would be entirely unreasonable to suggest the same with Rhythm Tengoku. That might be more an input handling issue with Parappa, but conveyance tends to not be great regardless. I've heard word from the grapevine that later Rhythm Heavens are easier, but I haven't played them, so it's all just conjecture to me. Do you notice something? Yeah, this looks a lot like Yume Kojo Doki Doki Panic for the Nintendo Famicom Entertainment System. Long overdone joke aside, there's a strange amount of overlap between WarioWare and Rhythm Heaven. As I said earlier, Rhythm Heaven isn't as out there as that series, but nevertheless, the stylistic and even the structural similarities are hard to deny. WarioWare might be more rapid-fire and narrative-driven, but it's still a minigame collection with simple controls and thick outlined characters. And that's because they were initially developed by the same team. Well, sorta. There isn't much overlap in staff between their respective first games, but they were made under the same roof of Nintendo SPD Group 1. Importantly, that shared lineage seems to come down to one key factor. One Ko Takeuchi, to be specific. Those simple, bold character designs seen both in-game and on the box is his art. He also designed minigames for both games, but for Rhythm Tengoku specifically, he took on the role as design director, and you can feel that stylistic presence permeate throughout not just that game, but the Rhythm Heaven series as a whole. There are other artists involved, of course, and the varied styles that come with that, but it's hard to deny Takeuchi as a major creative voice for Rhythm Heaven, especially given his voice is quite literally present in the games. There's actually quite a bit of voice acting in these games, even way back on the GBA. Well, in Japanese anyways, because as I've alluded to, the original Rhythm Tengoku never came out internationally. It's only through the work of hardcore fans that I even get to properly experience this game to begin with. This game came out incredibly late in the GBA's life, after Mother 3 that very same year. The Nintendo DS is even name-dropped in the game's options menu, but it goes deeper than that still. The player-controlled character in Nightwalk and its variants isn't originally from Rhythm Tengoku, but rather from the Play-On Media Player as its cursor. There's definitely a certain threshold of obscure Nintendo bullshit reached when the top result for something is the AK Family home video. 3 of them. Rhythm Tengoku could not be more of a quirky Nintendo game if it tried. So they made a sequel for the DS. It's so simple, even Beyonce can play it in a commercial. And it's so DS, you can never play it well on anything other than a dual-screen handheld. Strangely, the Wii one entirely refrains from any waggling action. I guess they had the foresight to know motion controls don't work great for the series' uniquely precise, rapid inputs. Even Megamix for the 3DS primarily uses the buttons in a more standard format. You know what's weird to think about? That's every Rhythm Heaven game. There are only 4 entries in total, not including the arcade adaptation of Tengoku. For reference, WarioWare had 4 games by 2006. Even as a niche subseries of a much more popular gaming icon, WarioWare was still able to flourish in its own right as weird and kinda nasty in a sea of normalcy. But like the man himself, it's still charismatic enough to be appreciated wholeheartedly. Never gone for too long, there's always a new WarioWare around the corner, whether you like it or not. But when a new Rhythm Heaven comes around, however, that's an event. It's like a solar eclipse. Well, maybe it's something more like a shooting star. Despite how common they seem, you could easily go years without seeing one. But when you do, there's nothing else quite like it. Which is why Rhythm Heaven makes me smile. Even at its most frustrating, I can't hold much of a grudge against this game, or any of its follow-ups, because it's too damn sweet. If it broke down my door in the middle of the night with a bloody knife in hand, I'd still welcome it with open arms despite the apparent murderous intent, because I know it's just ketchup on a plastic blade. And plus, it's hard to resist a smile like that. Even when you fuck up terribly at one of the mini-games, it's never too harsh on you. In fact, even when you have to try again, the game might still praise your effort during certain segments depending on your performance. It can be tough, like really tough, but it still wants you to prevail at the end of the day. I didn't initially think to try the 10 extra mini-games unlocked after the credits, because I never thought I'd beat them, especially after a rough attempt at Karate Man 2. But on a whim, I decided to push on through anyway and cleared them all. Barely, but still. I even pulled off a perfect run on the very first mini-game. And it's worth it to see the various epilogues for the various mini-games, some of the only bits of word-to-word storytelling in the entire game. That goes for the other entries as well, besides Megamix having a full-on storyline for some reason. It's just as cute as the minigames themselves, though. It's difficult to put into words why these minigames endear me to that extent. Maybe it's the Hanna-Barbera-ass sound effects in Rat Race, or the little guys controlling the pistons in Hopping Road, or the monkeys, or even the preceding title card art. But at the very least, the quirky GBA and GB-ain't music gives me the resolve to stick through the most grueling trials. Speaking of, it's hard to overstate how wonderful the remix levels are, how they gradually go from a simple gauntlet of previous minigames to something much more striking, both in the pervasive music tracks stringing them together into one cohesive narrative, and the visuals that are tweaked to suit. Before, minigames would feel disparate, just excerpts of random scenarios. But in remixes, it feels like you're working towards something. Hard to say exactly what that may be, but it's clear there's something really nice on the other side. The vocal tracks are definitely the highlight in that regard, as I already said. I kind of found them out of place at first, but I began to appreciate the energy they bring to the remix levels. Which is to say, Remix 5 is subjectively the best one. Watching a YouTube video of one of the remixes from Fever, I think I almost cried a little? Not to make myself vulnerable though, because gamers never cry. That's cringe. But I can't help it. I love my toys. I'm not sure why even the first game has a bunch of optional side content, but I'm all here for it. Let me drum out by mashing buttons in a vaguely rhythmic manner to any given song. Or just watch a guy on the internet actually drum out to a Rhythm Heaven song. For the longest time, I've only experienced this series through that kind of online cultural osmosis, always wondering why so many people wanted the damn chorus kids in Smash Bros, or what the name of that one song is, used in numerous gaming videos. But now, and especially with the announcement of Groove, the soon-to-be 5th mainline entry, I'm genuinely pretty excited at the prospect of delving deeper into this series, beyond what I felt was necessary for footage. And on my own terms, to be clear, I'm not making a 100-minute video about the wonders of Rhythm Heaven Fever. Be the change you want to see in the world and all that. You know, like the mostly complete but unfinished fan translation of Tengoku, with an added lengthy author's note urging readers to ask Nintendo for an international Wii U or 3DS Virtual Console release. Fill out those Club Nintendo surveys. For real, I can't wait to see how Rhythm Heaven continues to change the world, as much as a small obscure series of Nintendo video games can. Despite some hardship, the spirit of Rhythm Heaven will always persist. God, I'm so fucking sweaty right now. I gotta take fucking 5 showers.